Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another BRAP. I believe I did a lunchtime rant last week. I believe this last Monday, if I'm not mistaken. But I figured, what the heck, do another one. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Hope everyone had a chance to play some video games. I did get to play a little bit of a bit more of Astrobot, and when time permitting and children permitting as well. But got to play a little bit of that, and I'm enjoying it. Had a very interesting conversation with Game Logic about Astrobot in particular, whether or not it's a Game of the Year contender. I'm not going to talk about that today. I'm going to save that conversation for Wednesday's show, our regularly scheduled Wednesday show, Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern time. So if you're interested in getting our perspective, our take on Astrobot being a Game of the Year contender, definitely want to tune into that show on Wednesday night, again, 9 p.m. Eastern time. So do me a quick favor, hit that like button if you haven't done so already. And if you're new, consider subscribing, hitting the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. So also, if you're interested, become another way to support the channel is become a BRAP VIP member. We will be doing a giveaway. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that. Ice Queen Gaming, the state of play announced tomorrow. Detective Seeds had kind of hinted at that when we had him on last. I don't think this is going to be one where they blow the doors off. There's potentially another event later on in the year, possibly December, where Detective Seeds had mentioned that will be the show that will really show some of the bigger titles, if you will, that PlayStation has in the pipeline for its consumers. So again, I think it's not going to be James Thomas, not the VGAs. This is going to be a separate PlayStation event. Again, none of this has been confirmed. This is a purely speculation, rumor, but something that Detective Seeds and Detective Seeds. I apologize if I misquoted you here, but I do seem to remember you mentioning that on the last time we had you on. There could be something later on in December, but you did mention that there will be a state of play this month, this week in particular. As Ice Queen Gaming mentioned, excuse me, there is going to be a PlayStation state of play. Hold on a sec here. There will be a PlayStation State of Play tomorrow. It will broadcast at 3 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and 11 p.m. BST. So it's going to be a 30-minute show that begins at those times I mentioned. It will broadcast in both English and Japanese, and I'm sure we'll be seeing some games. But this is just news updates for over 20 titles. So they're going to be giving us updates on 20 games. We'll see what those titles are. I'm sure we'll see something as it relates to the celebration of 30 years of PlayStation. They did actually last week show us the nostalgic PlayStation 5, PlayStation 5 Pro. The PlayStation 5 Pro consoles for the 30th anniversary has the same color scheme as the original PlayStation 1, if you remember that, back in 1995. And it will also show it also comes with the color scheme comes with the limited edition DualSense and DualSense Edge controllers and PlayStation Portal, as well as the regular standard PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, the PS5 Pro will be in limited edition, only about, I think, 12,500. 12,500 of those will be out there for the public to buy. So I think that thing's going to sell out pretty quickly. Good morning, D Nice. What is going on? So yes, that is breaking news. Thank you, Ice Queen Gaming. Yes, that is breaking news. Muck 45. Yeah, the bundle is limited, James. Is it 12,300? I thought it was 12,500. Well, it's 12,000. 12,000. So I think those things are going to sell out pretty quickly. So yeah, I again, I wouldn't expect that we were going to see anything tomorrow's state of play. I mean, what do you, I guess I'll throw this out to the Ice Queen Gaming, a early happy birthday to you. But I'm just curious. Everyone in the live chat, let me know what games, if there are any particular games that you have on the radar for PlayStation that you would hope to see tomorrow. Let me know what you guys think in the live chat. Let me know what you think in the comment section too. But yeah, I'm just I don't expect this one to be a huge state of play per se. Like I don't think we're gonna get any big announcements. Again, Seeds had hinted at that there'd be another event in December where we would get some of those bigger titles. So we'll see. T-Rock says Ghost of Tsushima sequel. Yeah, I want to see that too, T-Rock. I don't know if we'll see that tomorrow though. I'd be surprised if we see it tomorrow. What's going on? Nate says, yeah, I'm not expecting anything tomorrow, but I'll be seated. Yeah, I'll be seated too, Nate. I'll be seated too. Actually, you know what? I won't be seated. I'll have to catch the replay because I have. Let me double check my schedule here. Yeah, I won't be able to see it tomorrow live because I'm gonna have to see. I'm gonna have to catch the replay because I am going to be at baseball practice tomorrow while this thing is streaming. Now, there is that rumored Days Gone remaster. I think that's something Jeff Grubb had hinted to. Detective Seeds has talked about it. So there's that. I could see something like that being announced at the State of Play. I know some people are unhappy about remasters, but look, I think I saw somebody on Twitter say, "Oh, well, why are they doing remasters? You know, that's time and money that could be applied towards, a new game." And it's like, as we often say on the show, two states of being can coexist. Is it two? I can't even talk. Two states of beings can coexist. And we've mentioned that quite a bit on this show, meaning that you can, on one hand, yes, there could be time, resources, money allocated towards a remaster, but there could also be time, money, and resources allocated to a new game. Just because a remaster is happening doesn't mean that in fact a new game isn't in development. And we know that we know that we know there's we know that Ben Studios is working on a new IP. No official word of what that IP is, but we do know they're working on a new IP. This is after the pitch for Days Gone 2 was shut down. But yeah, I mean, look, it's whether or not you value remasters or you want them, they are a thing. There has been a clear demand signal from the market that the market supports and will consume remasters. And they're an easy lift for development studios. They're not writing new lines of code. They're just putting they're just putting a shiny new coat of paint on it. And so that's why they're doing these things. I mean, it's an easy lift. It's an easy lift for them, and they will sell. And again, I just when I read some of these takes, I'm like, look, I mean, there's a lot of information on the internet where you can look up the benefit of remasters. You can look at sales data on remasters. They're not always a slam dunk, but they are opportunities with low risk, low investment to make some money with high margins. It just is what it is. If you don't like it, you don't buy it. So James Thomas brings up a interesting point. PlayStation just took $500 million wash on Concord. They're probably hurting right now. So actually, there's been James and to Mary Wilcox, who's a one of the moderators here. To Mary's point, James, that $400 million budget thing is not true. It hasn't been collaborated. In fact, you have former PlayStation developer Del Walker say that isn't true. You've had Christopher Dring kind of shake his hand. Christopher Dring of GameIndustry.biz kind of shake his head, shake his head that he couldn't believe that media sites were running with this, and that there's no way that a team of that size would have a larger budget than say a team at Insomniac. So Detective Seeds actually. And I have to go back and look. I haven't corroborated what Detective Seeds post. So again, take this at face value. But Detective Seeds did post some screenshots of I think it was funding or something. I have to look it up again. Let me just see this real quick. Yeah, Detective Seeds posted something on his timeline of Concord funding to dispute the $400 million price tag with funding photo documents. He said Concord is a $100 to $150 million game failure. Firewalk was founded in 2018. They received a venture capitalist investment of about $20 million. In 2020, Probably Monsters acquired a PPP loan as well for an unknown amount. Couldn't pinpoint exactly. On September 1st, 2021, the next Series A investment was awarded to Probably Monsters for $200 million. Probably Monsters was the company that owned them before, with the lead investor being LKCM Headwater. In 2022, they had one more round of fundraising, adding an additional $31.2 million and landing at $250 million total raised overall. So Seeds does this, kind of breaks down and highlights the funding documents. But I know that Del Walker, who is a game developer, and he was having a conversation with someone on Twitter, and as people at Twitter often do, they say, "No, Mr. Sarcastic, this isn't damage control. This is just explaining that you have people who have actually developed video games, people that have worked at." People that have worked at Sony Studios understand P&L, understand the finances of games, like Del Walker had mentioned. Even Christopher Dring had said, like, this isn't true. Christopher Dring of Game Industry Biz saying, like, hey, this really isn't true. And Christopher Dring being surprised that the media ran with this. But then you have Detective Seeds actually pointing to funding documentation and breaking down the timeline of funding, which doesn't get you to $400 million. So no, this isn't damage control, Mr. Sarcastic. This is just explaining the fact that you have people that have worked in the industry saying that this isn't true. We also know that this hasn't been further corroborated by anyone else outside of just one source that had mentioned this to Colin Moriarty. So I mean, it seems like this thing isn't true. Even the documentation that Seeds provide, I would be inclined to say this probably isn't true. So I don't know why you think that's damage controlling when you're actually citing different people in the industry that's saying, like, no, this thing isn't true, the $400 million. So I don't know why you continue to insist that is that is damage control. I suppose, Mr. Sarcastic, you probably want us to say, oh, this is a big L, this is a big miss. We don't have those conversations here. I think the thing, is that look, this game was clearly a miss, not a game that was financially viable at the end of the day after retail release, which is why Sony decided to shut it down and refund money to consumers. I mean, Mr. Sarcastic, maybe this was a direct hit to Herman Hulst. Who knows? I mean, whatever the case is, I mean, people will step down as is happening. And I'll get to that story here in a bit, but I mean, I'm sure somebody's I'm sure somebody's catching heat. They'll write this off as a loss. And they'll move on with their business, and they'll course correct as needed. That's what companies do. But the overarching point is that the $400 million thing doesn't appear to be accurate or true. It's interesting, Del Walker, seeing Del Walker. PlayStation is cuddled when it takes hits and loses. Let's all be real. What does that mean, James Thomas? No apology tour from Herman for his failure of a launch. I mean, why does there need to be an apology tour? I mean, they shut it down and gave consumers their money back. I don't know. Address de Bungie. What does de mean, Mr. Castic? What are you talking about? What is DE? Address de Bungie acquisition? Then what does DE mean? De. Yeah, T-Rock. People don't know writing stuff as a loss works. Perhaps Sony is going bankrupt to get the program. It's funny you say that. Yeah, I mean that's what people say. But the Bungie, what about the Bungie acquisition? I mean, clearly Sony's getting their hands all over Bungie, as they probably should, because Bungie has shown that, given their size as an organization and given leadership there, they aren't able to get the results or hit KPIs or OKRs that Sony wants them to, that Sony wants Bungie to have, which is why Sony's getting more involved. We talked about it on this show, Mr. Sarcastic, that I think it was Game Logic kind of laid out the idea. His hypothesis was that leadership at Bungie didn't have the necessary experience per se to successfully run a larger organization as it had become so big, and that's part of one of the reasons why they've had issues. And so meeting their API or KPIs, OKRs, and so that is why Sony's kind of stepped in, as you would expect an organization to do so, and I would be surprised if, and that typically happens anyway with mergers, acquisitions. The company that acquires typically steps in. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So okay, so Mr. Kasich, so they missed on one game. You're saying the Jim Ryan quote about using their expertise in gas and lesson learned? Yeah, they missed one game. They also hit it out of the park with Helldivers 2. So they're 1 for 1. James Thomas, look, dude, we're not going to do this. We're not going to. This is poor management. Okay, so how has poor management impacted the business then? You guys, I mean, James, you're using a one singular failed game as, are you? Yeah, and James, here's the thing: if you're going to troll, and you're going to make comments like this, you're probably going to get muted. We don't do that here. That's not well. But the thing is, you're saying this is poor management based off of one game. What about the 6 cancel games? Okay, there were 6 cancel games. So PlayStation didn't believe those games were worth continuing funding of those games or continuing the development of those games, and they were canceled. Okay. I mean, like, so what's your point, Mr. Cass? I mean, Mr. Cassick, understand this, that only 20% of all video games, it was an unprecedented failure. Compared to what? What's your rubric? Unprecedented, like, are you comparing it to other games? Like, where, Mr. Sarcastic, where does it rank in terms of other games that have failed in an unprecedented manner? See, this is the thing that, like, this is the thing that people like Mr. Sarcastic and James Thomas start doing. They start doing the mental gymnastics, and they don't understand how game development works. They don't understand how funding works or managing a P&L. They don't understand how decisions are made. They don't understand the fact that, to this point, Mr. Sarcastic, a statistic you should probably be aware of, that 20% of all video games. Oh, I should say, let me frame it like this. Well, yeah, I mean, 2 weeks in the market and refund. Yeah, I mean, they're not the only developer to ever refund a game a few weeks in the market. I mean, and yeah, I mean, we're not disagreeing. Clearly, the game didn't do well. It didn't meet expectations, and they felt the need to shut it down and offer a refund. Okay, so what? It's not the end of the world. Companies do this all the time. It's business. It is what it is. It's not damage control. It's not damage control. It's the reality of how businesses operate, Mr. Sarcastic. You say it's damage control because you want to drive a narrative that somehow this is reflective of bad leadership. You know, look, companies take risk, and sometimes those risks don't pay off. So I don't know why you think that that's damage control. It's not damage control. It's just the reality of how companies operate. You know. And the other thing I'll say to you, Mr. Sarcastic, is you don't understand the risk and how challenging game development is. And this has nothing to do with, again, as we've said, this Concord clearly was a retail failure for PlayStation. Hence them saying, you know what, we're going to shut this down. We're going to refund our consumers money because it didn't meet our expectations, not meeting the expectation of the consumer, and it's just better for us to cut our losses. So this is what you should be aware of, Mr. Sarcastic. Out of all video games that go into development production, only 20% ever make retail release. Out of those 20% that make retail release, only 5% of all video games are ever profitable. That's not damage controlling. That is just the reality of game development. And it just so happens that Concord in this case is one of the 95% of games that just wasn't profitable. It's not damage controlling. It is what it is. Look, do we understand that Concord wasn't a success? Yeah, it was. It failed to meet expectations. That's why they shut it down. You know, do you want to have a conversation about next steps here for PlayStation? Sure, we can do that. You would hope that they would learn from the failure of Concord and apply that to their upcoming games as a service games, because they should. Mary, did you time him out from the show? Yeah, Marion, I don't disagree with you. Like people are saying one failed live service game doesn't mean Sony's going down the tubes. I don't disagree with you. I do think there's a lesson to be learned by Sony leadership with this particular game in hopes they don't make that mistake again, and maybe causes them to reevaluate their business. But this is what companies do. Street Shadow just made a great point here. They should take the positive of Helldivers 2 and the learnings from Concord to proceed forward. I don't disagree with you. I think it's a great point. I mean, it's like, you know, on one hand, it's like they have the success of Helldivers 2, which has been a runaway success, and then they have the failure of Concord. But it seems like guys like, Mr. Sarcastic and the James Thomas guy, they just want to focus on the one failure and kind of draw this conclusion that somehow the PlayStation is, clearly the game's a failure, but somehow that failure implies something larger, that there being a larger issue internally there. Oh wait, Mary, did you ban them? Look, Miguel has a sock account. Look, Mr. Sarcastic has a sock account. So Mr. Miguel, I guess your name is. You were timed out because you're saying things like, "Oh, here comes a spin," because you're trying to push a narrative, and you're not trying to have a conversation. I explained to you, Miguel. Yeah, the idea of buying Bungie was to beat those odds, but then Mr. Sarcastic, what about Helldivers 2? Like the idea, and this is how I know you don't know how business works, Mr. Sarcastic or Miguel. Now that we know your real name, this is how I know you don't understand how business works. To beat those odds, it's not. Those game development is difficult, even for Bungie that's had issues with Destiny. You know. Okay, but Concord was also in development before the Bungie acquisition. See, Miguel, you're not trying to have a genuine conversation. You're cherry picking. You're saying Helldivers 2 was in development before the Bungie acquisition. But then again, so was Concord. Like, you're way too invested in narratives, Miguel, aka Mr. Sarcastic. You're not trying to have a serious conversation here. I just rolled out some statistics here, Miguel. Out of all games that are in development, only 20% of those games ever meet retail release. Out of those 20% of games that meet retail release, only 5% are profitable. That means 95% of games fail. Okay? So Miguel, 95% of games fail. Concord is one of those 95%. And I know you're feeding a narrative, or you're trying to drive this false narrative, because you're using words like "here comes the spin" or "damage control" when we're discussing how businesses operate. Because you fail to understand how businesses operate doesn't mean that we're spinning things. What narrative? Well, the narrative that you're trying to paint, that there's some kind of, issue internally, like there's this big problem, that Bungie, maybe you're not saying this, but it comes across as that you're trying to say that Bungie, the acquisition of Bungie, was supposed to eliminate all these, games as a service games coming out and not being good. No. And look, and the mental gymnastics, Miguel, people do the mental gymnastics are typically trying to push narratives. The reality is that this game is 95%. This game falls into those 95%. Heads rolled, my friend Connie Booth. Why was Connie fired? And so, Miguel, if Connie what was she fired for? Why did she leave? Do you know? See, what you're trying to do, Miguel, is you're trying to drive a narrative that there's big issues, that there's problems. Problems? Okay, so she was let go. And? I mean, Miguel, do you work for a company? I mean, this is how companies operate. People are let go all the time. I mean, like, I don't know what to tell you, Miguel. Do you work for a company? Do you know how companies operate? Not when things are going fine. No, that's not true, Miguel. Miguel, you cannot have this conversation because you don't understand how businesses work. There could be internal shifts in strategy, and when you have, because I've seen this in my own work, when you have a segment of leadership that doesn't agree with a company's pivot or strategy, then yeah, people will get let go. It's just business. But this doesn't imply that there's tons of issues at PlayStation. It just is what it is. What we know, though, when you say things are going fine, what we do know is that when you look at the overall health of the PlayStation business, it is doing fine. And if there was a disaster internally at PlayStation, that would probably be something that Miguel would probably be reported on or discussed by something like the Wall Street Journal. Or God only knows the gaming media sites, because that would be a huge news story. All right, I'm not wasting any more time on Miguel or Mr. Sarcastic, because he just doesn't know how businesses operate. I'm not going to waste my time having conversations with people who just want to, throw Hail Marys or, make hyperbolic commentary about the business without even understanding how businesses work. All right, but and again, this is no one should be surprised by this. Concord's director reportedly has stepped down following Concord's failed launch. Ryan Ellis is apparently moving into a support role within Firewalk Studios. Ellis, who Concord games director, and this is according to The Verge, Concord game director Ryan Ellis has stepped down following the decision to take the game offline, according to Kotaku. Developers at Concord. Developer Firewalk Studios are also uncertain of the future of the studio. Ellis, whose resume also includes more than 7 years at Bungie, informed staff of the change in his role last week. Kotaku reports Ellis also authored the PlayStation blog post announcing Concord's shutdown. That post said that Firewalk's team would be exploring options for what to do next with Concord, but Kotaku reports that some developers have been asked to explore pitches for something completely different. Some Firewalk developers are apparently refreshing their portfolios in anticipation of potential layoffs, and a few have left already. Sony didn't immediately reply to requests for comment. The company's had some struggles with its live service efforts. Destiny 2 developer Bungie announced in July that it would be laying off 220 Bungie employees and moving others to PlayStation. All right, so I'm not surprised by that news story of him stepping down, giving the how bad Concord has done, and the fact that Sony shut the game down and issued refunds. When refunds are being issued, yeah, you're going to see some layoffs and people stepping down. I mean, none of this surprises me. Mira Quilcock says, not to mention stupid. There are plenty of games across the board coming out. Concord's failure is what people are focused on. Mary, it's console war stuff. I think to an extent it's console war stuff. I think that people are hyper focused because they want to find a chink in the armor at PlayStation. I think everyone who most people here in the live chat are rational people. I think we all agree in the live chat everyone would agree in the live chat that the game was a failure. It failed. It failed to meet expectations. That's why the game was taken offline. No one is disputing that. The game was a failure. Sony shut it down. Sony shut it down, and that's why they issued refunds. And you would think, common business sense, that they would take I mean, Miguel, again, the issue is the gas initiative. You're taking the failure of one game and you're sidestepping the fact that they've had another highly successful gas service game that is doing very well for them in Helldivers 2. I mean, so is your rubric, Miguel, that they had to be 2 for 2 with gas service games being successful? I mean, again, Miguel, I just mentioned again, and I'll say this to you one last time. Out of all games that go to development, only 20% ever meet retail release. Okay? Out of those 20% that meet retail release, only 5% are profitable. That means 95% of those games fail. Okay, he had the intention to release 12 games, so we're not getting 12 games. Someone within PlayStation leadership made the decision to cut down the number of gas service games. They pivoted. So what? Then 6. Okay, so they have 6. So why is that an issue? They've changed the direction they're going. Companies take risks. They reevaluate risk. They adjust. They dial it back. Okay. I mean, it happens. This isn't unique to the industry. Their rate of success on gas has been poor at that. How, based on what, Miguel? Now you're just making stuff up. They've released 2 gas games. One of them has been a huge market success. The other one failed. So they're 50-50? They're 50-50, Miguel? That's a bad thing? Are you, Miguel, are you suddenly are you now are you an analyst, Miguel? Is there something you're not telling us? Are you an analyst? After the acquisition of Bungie, they've had 2. They also have Gran Turismo as successes. Okay, but they also have Helldivers 2 as a success. They had one game that didn't meet expectations. The Bungie acquisition has nothing to do with the failure of Concord. All right. You know, Miguel, I'm going to assume that you're probably younger in age. You probably work at your local Foot Locker selling tennis shoes and T-shirts. And you don't understand how business operates. I'm going to tell you, Miguel, there's a lot of information out there. Oh, and it pains me that I look at your name, you're Latino. I'm Latino as well. It pains me, Miguel, as a fellow Latino male, that you are not doing your due diligence and doing research. Yeah, I'm patronizing you because you're patronizing us. Because you're making commentary that isn't backed on any data. No one's disagreeing with you that Concord is a failure, that Concord has failed. But you trying to draw to this idea or conclusion that somehow, they have major issues with gas. I mean, maybe they do. We don't know, but we don't know. And if they did, they pivoted. They made a decision. Okay, we're not going to do 12. The risk of releasing 12 games is too high. We don't think that the market's going to respond to these other 12 or 12 games, so we're going to cut it down to 6. Is Miguel in time? Is he in timeout again, Mary? Oh, he's in timeout. Okay. I mean, there is that narrative. Oh, they bought Bungie. Bungie was supposed to fix everything. Bungie's been a failure. Look, Bungie has certainly Bungie. There's totally been challenges with Bungie. Absolutely, we've talked about that on this show. We've talked about that on the show. That's why Sony is getting involved now. And clearly some changes are happening at Firewalk Studios. You have the lead director stepping down from his role. People are leaving. According to Kotaku, they're being asked to pitch other ideas. Jeez, I don't understand it. There's just so much information out there that you can use to get an understanding. There's actually a book that I was reading that Game Logic had suggested I read. I forget the name of the book, but it's basically how video game development works. People should read that before making comments about the industry in that way, the way that he was doing. Hey, how long is he timed out for, Mary? Or Ice Queen Gaming? I think one of you timed him out. Look, like I've said to people many times on the show, we don't do the nonsense here. We just don't do that. You know, it's not what we do here. We don't do the console war stuff. You know. Have I heard that Namco is doubling down on DI for their video games? Okay, so what? If it bothers you, don't play it. Assuming it bothers you, Hunter. And it's funny, like, we had a conversation, I think, last Monday about the whole DI thing. We had someone here commenting about that and wanting more quote unquote conservative type games with more, along those lines, right? And it's interesting because the people that are making the same argument against what quote unquote DEI and them feeling that their representation is being censored, they're also looking to do the same thing that they're upset about in censoring diversity in video games, which is totally ironic, by the way. All right. I want to get to Nintendo 2 Switch. If you guys saw the photo leaks, Andy Robinson had posted. Andy Robinson VGC actually tweeted out the summary of today's alleged Switch 2 leaks. He had some pictures of it. Well, I was going to say, State of Play tomorrow. PlayStation getting people geared up for those pro pre-orders. I said pre-orders. I can't even talk. So I haven't had lunch yet. Pre-orders. Yeah. By the way, as I mentioned, by the way, Detective Seeds. Big shout out to Seeds. He said, I say temper expectations on the first-party games at the State of Play tomorrow. We will see if I'm right. I think Seeds, I mentioned this earlier, State of Play, don't expect the bangers, if you will. And I think Seeds had mentioned that on the show. Yeah, T-Rock, that's a great point. 20 titles in just over 30 minutes. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I'm not expecting much either. All right, so some new details about the Nintendo Switch 2. Again, none of this has been corroborated just yet, but it does appear that the PlayStation, I'm going to say PlayStation 2, the Switch 2 will have an 8-inch LCD screen, a larger form factor, and new Joy-Cons. That the device may feature twin USB-C ports, top and bottom, a micro SD card slot, and cartridge support. People seem to believe this indicates that the Switch 2 will be compatible with the original Switch media, which I think is a big thing for a Nintendo Switch 2 to allow people to play Switch games. You know, Nintendo necessarily hasn't always been friendly in that regard. Unless Nintendo in some way doesn't allow those cartridges to work, which I'm not saying they're going to do that, but if anyone could figure that out, I would imagine it might be Nintendo. Because Nintendo does what Nintendo does. In terms of specifications, the Switch 2 is rumored to have 12 gigabytes of RAM, which is 3 times as much as the original Switch, which has 4 gigabytes. There are hints that of a built-in microphone for enhanced multiplayer game experiences with the Nintendo Switch 2. So again, I mean, none of this has been officially collaborated, but it is rumored that we will get a Switch 2 announcement sometime soon. Let me just double check if there's been any updates on that. All right, so there is a Nintendo Direct on in 3 days. So there's some speculation. There's some speculation here that we'll get the Switch 2 announcement at this week's Nintendo Direct, but we'll see. I tell you what, if we get the Nintendo Direct 2, or I'm sorry, if we get the announcement of the Switch 2 at this week's Nintendo Direct, that's going to be huge. That's going to be huge. Also, I'd be curious to see what the launch price of the Switch 2 is going to be. Because, we're 7 years. It's going to be, we're going to 8 years now with the Nintendo Switch. It did launch on March 3rd, 2017. But, I mean, it launched at $300. It's going to be interesting to see if Nintendo keeps that $300 price point. T-Rock says, I don't think I'll buy a Switch 2. We haven't used our Switch in 18 months. You know, I don't really use my Switch a lot, T-Rock. I do primarily use it for when they release first-party games. My kids they definitely use a Switch more than I do. Yeah, so let me know what you guys think in the comment section. If you are excited for the Switch 2, if this is something you'll be purchasing, or if it's a pass. Yeah, T-Rock, I hear you. I could certainly see that. Given your kid's age, they would be more on the PS5. Oh, so they're gonna have that. They're gonna have the Nintendo Direct like the day after BRAP on Wednesday. So, oh well. I may do a BRAP rant Thursday maybe if I have time. Actually, I got to check my calendar. I might not be able to do that. I know because I usually have baseball Thursdays. Stone's predicting a state of play. I predict we'll see Mario Kart 9, Bloodborne remaster with ray tracing, Concord remake, God of War 3. Oh my gosh, that's funny. Gosh, I'm seeing like some leaks here on 4chan about like the games are going to show. I mean, it is crazy. And I'll just so again, this is just leaks. Not leak. This is just a rumor, right? Horizon Zero Dawn remaster, Until Dawn remaster, Lego Horizon Adventures, Gravity Days 1 and 2 remasters, Ghost of Tsushima 2 teaser trailer, third-party games, Lost Soul Aside, Star Sky Valley, Stellar Blade DLC, Dragon Dogma 2 expansion, Resident Evil 9 teaser trailer, Death Stranding 2, Silent Hill 2 remake, Metal Gear Solid Delta, Snake Eater, Kingdom Hearts 4, Final Fantasy 9 remake, Dragon Quest 12. I mean, if this is, let's just assume this is true, which I don't think it is. If it is true, if that was true, that'd be a hell of a show, but I don't think that's true at all. I don't think it's going to be the case. I would say, again, let's temper our expectations. Temporary expectations is what I'm saying. It's what Seeds say. What Seeds is saying too. I'm agreeing. I'm agreeing with what Seeds just tweeted out here. So, all right, everyone. Well, that is my lunchtime rant for today, and want to thank the moderators again. Appreciate it, and let me know what you think of the live in the comments section below about the potential Nintendo Switch 2, if that's something you're interested in. And what games you hope to see at tomorrow's State of Play by PlayStation. So I want to thank everyone again for watching the show live. Many of you are at home, either at work or some of you are in other parts of the world, probably not working, enjoying your evening. Some of you are listening to me at work, so I certainly appreciate that. But again, if you're new, consider subscribing, hitting the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live, and also hit that like button if you've done so already. I may do another lunchtime rant tomorrow if I have time, but I may do that. So thanks again, everyone. Really appreciate the support. Appreciate you taking time to listen to today's rant. Again, big shout out to the mods again. I appreciate you all. And again, look, hey, we've said it before. We try to have a good conversation here. We don't do the whole console war stuff. The mods will take care of that quickly if you haven't learned that lesson today. So thank you again, mods. But we'll catch you next time. And again, I may do a BRAP rant tomorrow. I'm not sure. But at the very least, we'll be back Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be discussing the State of Play, giving you our impressions of what we saw. So until then, take care.